"Sir, you don't have to get up. Please, let me help you." The words were barely audible, but they cut through the solemn silence like a heartbeat in stillness. All eyes snapped to the tomb guard, who had suddenly done the unthinkable. He broke character. These sentinels are trained to be unshakable, silent, stoic. They do not flinch. They do not speak. They do not break their solemn march for anything. Until this moment. Just steps away from the hallowed mat, an elderly man in a weathered military uniform had fallen. The sharp clink of his medals hitting the stone echoed across the plaza. He was trying to rise, his frail hands trembling, eyes burning with frustration and pride. It wasn't just a stumble, it was a lifetime's weight trying to lift itself one more time. The tomb guard, his boots gleaming, his rifle perfect, dropped to one knee and extended a hand. Not as a soldier in ceremony, but as a man honoring another. Gasps swept through the crowd like wind through flags. This wasn't part of the routine. There were no scripts or rehearsals for this. Phones trembled in hands, people froze, no one dared speak. What they were witnessing was sacred in a different way. Unscripted, raw, and deeply human. Just minutes earlier, the ceremony had been flawless. Every 21 steps, every precise turn, the hush of the crowd, the respect. And then he appeared, a frail, silver-haired man moving slowly across the plaza with a cane and a fire in his eyes. His jacket hung loose, but his back was straight. His face was a map of battles survived and brothers lost. Each step looked like it hurt, but he never hesitated. He was headed to the tomb of the unknown soldier. He had a salute to give. The crowd made space, murmurs softening into reverence. Then, with one final step, his knee gave out. His body crumpled to the stone. The sound of his fall was jarring. But what happened next, no one could forget. The tomb guard, Private First Class Marcus Heller, reacted without thinking, without asking permission, without checking the rulebook. He moved. What the crowd didn't know was that the man now struggling on the ground was Colonel Harold Price, a living legend. A paratrooper from World War II, a Bronze Star recipient, a survivor of Bastogne. The kind of man who had seen the worst of humanity and still chose to salute it with dignity. And Marcus, just 22, barely out of training, suddenly found himself in a moment bigger than the mission, bigger than tradition. Kneeling beside him, Marcus whispered again, offering both hands. The veteran looked up, his eyes wet but proud. He tried to rise, refusing to be helped. His hand clutched the cane, but his soul clutched memories. Of brothers who never made it home, of battles where silence had meaning, of a time when saluting meant everything. And then Marcus stood sharply, turned toward the tomb, and raised his rifle in solemn salute. Not for show, not for ceremony, but for the man beside him and the ghosts behind him. It was longer than regulation, longer than any commander would advise, but it was exactly the right amount of time to honor a life lived in sacrifice. When he lowered the rifle, he extended his hand again. This time Harold took it. Together, slowly, they rose, one young, one old, one starting his service, one who had given his life to it. They stood tall, shoulders square, and together, unshaking, they saluted. No words, no applause. Just a silence so powerful it felt like time had stopped. Children stared in awe. Veterans removed their hats. One man dropped to a knee. A woman clutched her heart. In that stillness, honor spoke louder than any anthem. When it ended, Marcus helped Harold to his seat with quiet dignity. He returned to his post. His face, once stoic, now carried something deeper, understanding. A superior officer pulled him aside later and gently reminded him of the rules. Guards don't speak. They don't move out of turn. They don't break formation. Marcus simply nodded and said, "Yes, sir." But I didn't break faith. That clip hit the internet like wildfire. Within hours, it was everywhere. Not because a soldier made a mistake, but because a soldier remembered what really mattered. The story behind the salute, the faces behind the medals, the meaning behind the silence. Colonel Harold Price passed away 6 months later. But that moment, it became eternal. His daughter said it was the proudest he'd ever been. He told her that day, "I didn't fall. I stood taller than I have in years, with help from a young soldier who understood what it means to remember." Because sometimes honoring the fallen means lifting up the living. Sometimes the most powerful salute is the one shared. And sometimes, just sometimes, breaking character is exactly what the world needs to feel something real. Before we end this story, let us know in the comments where you're watching from. We'd love to hear. If this story touched you, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and let us know how you feel in the comment.